I try to avoid that, but I think it's unavoidable.
I can't do this forever. I've been doing it since I was 21.
Robert Redford, often deemed a magnet for misfortune, has finally unveiled the tragic trials he has endured over nearly 9 decades. His life has been marked by numerous hardships, including loss, illness, natural disasters, and broken marriages. Despite his artistic contributions and positivity, his story is one of resilience against an astonishing amount of adversity. Before his screen debut in the 1960 film Tall Story, Redford had already encountered more hardships and suffering than many experienced in a lifetime. Unfortunately, his later years have not been any kinder. As a private person, Redford rarely shares personal details, but in 2011, he collaborated with author Michael Feen on Robert Redford, The Biography, a comprehensive account of his life. This biography revealed many previously unknown or little-known aspects of the actor's personal life. One of the most intriguing revelations was about Redford's childhood. At the age of 11, in the spring of 1949, he woke up with encrusted eyelids and immobile limbs. It took weeks before he learned he had contracted polio, a devastating disease that often caused severe breathing issues, paralysis, and sometimes death. In the 1950s, a vaccine nearly eradicated polio, but Redford grew up in the 1930s and 1940s, when the disease was rampant. Although polio had existed for thousands of years, it reached pandemic proportions in the 20th century. Its highly contagious nature and asymptomatic cases made it difficult to track and isolate. In about 2% of cases, polio caused severe muscle damage and paralysis, sometimes affecting muscles critical for breathing. These breathing difficulties led to the invention of the iron lung, a device that confined thousands of young children and remains in use by some to this day. The campaign to eradicate polio is one of science's greatest achievements, but this breakthrough came too late for Redford. During his vulnerable childhood years in the mid-1940s, amidst widespread fear of polio, Redford contracted a mild but incapacitating form of the disease, likely from swimming in the ocean. Unlike severe cases that required iron lungs, his illness confined him to bed for 2 weeks before Jonas Salk's groundbreaking vaccine. The shadow of polio loomed over childhood, with iron lungs being a common sight and the disease an ever-present threat. In 2012, Redford directed a short film as part of the 3D documentary Cathedrals of Culture, paying tribute to Jonas Salk. The film focused on the San Diego Salk Institute for Biological Studies and the revolutionary development of the polio vaccine, which had a profound impact on Redford given his personal experience of the disease's dangers. Redford's upbringing in the Los Angeles area was shaped by his parents, Martha and Charles Redford. His father, a milkman turned accountant working for Standard Oil, supported the family through the Great Depression, a period of severe economic downturn in U.S. history. The Depression caused industrial production to plummet, unemployment to soar, and families to face significant hardships. Charles Redford's demanding work hours during this challenging era left little time for family, further shaping the young Robert Redford's early years. Charles's brother, David, stepped in as a surrogate father figure for the future Hollywood icon, Robert Redford. Redford, who later explored sports, cerebral pursuits, and the arts, likely drew significant influence from his time with his well-rounded uncle David, who was a talented football player and fluent in 4 languages. His versatility and accomplishments left a lasting impression on Redford during their shared activities. David also served in the U.S. military as an interpreter in General George S. Patton's Third Army. During furloughs, he and Redford played baseball together, and their interactions became increasingly impactful as the visits grew less frequent. David's presence, always in uniform and bearing the weight of wartime experiences, created profound memories. One particularly vivid recollection for Redford was their trip to see The Fallen Sparrow with John Garfield, a film that, despite being dark and spooky for a young Redford, sparked a lifelong appreciation for Garfield's movies. David's adventurous spirit and willingness to push boundaries deeply influenced Redford, shaping his love for cinema and a life lived on the edge. In the early 1940s, however, David was called away to combat during World War II. Tragically, he lost his life in the Battle of the Bulge on January 1, 1945, during a top-secret mission in Germany. He was killed by sniper fire while part of a small team. The devastating news took a week to reach his family. 8-year-old Bobby, as Robert Redford was known then, was left to cope with the loss of the influential figure in his life. Then called, was fetched from school when an army major arrived with heartbreaking details. David's death profoundly affected young Redford, forcing him to confront the harsh realities of human mortality and truth. Grief support was scarce in the Redford family, rooted in their Irish and Scottish heritage. Their stoic approach meant accepting events as they were, without discussion or questioning. Tragic events like David's death or the loss of Redford's twin sisters shortly after birth were endured in silence. There was no dialogue about the pain, the family simply moved forward with quiet resilience. This emotionally reserved environment significantly shaped Redford's own approach to life's challenges, fostering in him a sense of strength and grace in the face of adversity. Despite the tragedies of his early years, Redford's life intertwined with remarkable individuals. During the 1950s, Redford attended Van Nuys High School in Southern California, sharing its halls with Natalie Wood. Though they didn't cross paths as students, their destinies aligned in the 1960s. By that time, Wood was already a celebrated child star from Miracle on 34th Street and an Oscar nominee for Rebel Without a Cause, while Redford was beginning his ascent in Hollywood. Their collaboration blossomed in films like Inside Daisy Clover and This Property is Condemned, where Redford landed a breakthrough Golden Globe-winning role thanks to Wood's recommendation. The two shared a close friendship, and Wood even made a cameo in The Candidate, where Redford served as the best man at one of her weddings. Tragically, Natalie Wood's life was cut short in 1981 during a boating trip around Catalina Island with her husband, Robert Wagner, and actor Christopher Walken. She drowned under circumstances that remain shrouded in mystery. Her death, at the age of 43, was a profound loss, given her illustrious career and multiple Academy Award nominations. Adding an eerie layer to the tragedy was her well-known fear of water, rooted in her childhood. This loss marked yet another deeply affecting chapter in Redford's life, a reminder of the fragility and unpredictability of human existence. According to her sister Lana Wood, the mere idea of Natalie boarding a dinghy raised significant concerns, hinting that her death might not have been a simple accident. This suspicion was particularly poignant, given Natalie's lifelong fear of large bodies of water. Lana stated that Natalie would never intentionally place herself in such circumstances leading to her tragic demise. Natalie harbored a deep fear of water to the extent that she wouldn't even venture into her own swimming pool. Considering this fear, Lana strongly believed Natalie wouldn't have attempted to leave the yacht for the shore alone, especially not while wearing a nightgown. The circumstances surrounding Natalie Wood's death have continued to fuel speculation and uncertainty. In the aftermath of Natalie Wood's untimely demise, Robert Redford was profoundly affected by the loss of his friend. Breaking from his typically private nature, he expressed their deep connection in a heartfelt tribute through his appearances on Turner Classic Movies and interviews for the 2020 HBO documentary What Remains Behind. Redford lamented the unfortunate end of his friend. He shared his sorrow over the tragic loss of Natalie Wood and expressed a wistful wish that their paths could have crossed again. The death of Natalie Wood was not the first time Robert Redford had endured the loss of an important woman in his life. At the 2018 Sundance Film Festival's Utah Women's Leadership Celebration, Redford moved the audience to tears with a heartfelt tribute to his mother, Martha Redford. His childhood, marked by a bout of polio, also carried the weight of profound family tragedy, which cast a lingering shadow on his early years. When Robert was merely 10 years old, Martha gave birth to twin girls against her doctor's advice. Her previous pregnancy had already been medically challenging, but she deeply desired more children. Tragically, the twins died immediately after birth, and amidst the chaos, Martha developed a persistent blood disorder. This condition, lingering from the traumatic episode, culminated in a fatal hemorrhage that claimed her life in 1955, when Robert was just 18 years old. Despite these challenges, Martha steadfastly supported her son during his teenage years, even though he acknowledged he hadn't made things easy for her. Robert emphasized her enduring faith in him, as she believed he possessed a potential that would eventually flourish. Tragically, she passed away at the age of 40, just 5 years before his screen debut, leaving her belief in him unfulfilled in her lifetime. During his tribute, Redford praised his mother's infectious smile, adventurous spirit, and unwavering positivity. He expressed deep regret over not fully appreciating her during her lifetime. Speaking before an audience filled with famous actors, including his longtime friend Jane Fonda, Redford admitted that like many young people, he had taken his mother for granted. Now, he yearns for the chance to express his gratitude, a sentiment that remains unfulfilled because she passed away before he could convey it to her. Robert Redford's teenage years in Southern California during the post-World War II era were marked by significant challenges, set against a backdrop of intense racial tensions and pervasive racism. Growing up in Van Nuys, he found himself entangled in race-related gang conflicts, often becoming a target for bullying and aggression by members of a local gang. Surprisingly, the future Hollywood icon had a rebellious streak during his youth, immersing himself in trouble and even participating in a street gang. Among the many challenges and risky endeavors of his teenage years, a life-threatening dare nearly cost him his life. Felix, a fellow teenager, targeted Redford, likely out of envy stemming from Redford's good school track success and popularity with girls. The bullying escalated, forcing Redford to adapt quickly for survival. In one particularly dangerous challenge, teenage Redford was coerced into climbing onto a rooftop to demonstrate his toughness. Eager to maintain his facade of bad boy, he accepted the challenge of jumping off the roof, a potentially lethal act. The daring leap, intended to showcase his machismo, turned into a near-tragic ordeal. This harrowing experience shaped an early perspective for Redford: in the face of fear, one must either confront it or be controlled by it. This philosophy became a cornerstone of his approach to life. Despite narrowly avoiding serious injury, Redford's bold act solidified his standing among his peers. However, his risk ventures didn't stop there. Petty theft, particularly stealing alcohol from local stores, became a favorite pastime. As Redford grew older, his rebellion took on new forms. He experimented with hashish and marijuana and became involved in the illegal drag racing scene in Santa Barbara. A dramatic crash at 90 miles per hour during one such race, detailed in his biography, left him fortunate to survive. His rebellious streak persisted until the age of 16, when his brush with the law became more severe. An arrest for possession of stolen jewelry marked a turning point, bringing an end to his life of crime. Although Redford transitioned away from criminal activities, he didn't immediately settle into a conventional lifestyle. After graduating from Van Nuys High School in 1954 with commendable grades and an impressive sports record, he earned acceptance to the University of Colorado at Boulder on a sports scholarship. Initially drawn to the university's baseball program, Redford soon shifted his focus to studying art, abandoning his sports ambitions. Struggling to integrate socially, he found companionship with a senior member of the Kappa Sigma fraternity. This new social circle helped him break out of isolation and encouraged his artistic pursuits. However, this fraternity connection also became a source of trouble. Within a few months, Redford became deeply immersed in the campus drinking culture, participating in excessive alcohol consumption and pranks. His priorities shifted toward drag racing and motorcycle riding, pushing academics to the sidelines. While he gained popularity in these circles, his erratic behavior earned him a reputation as a loose cannon. Although the exact details of his departure from Kappa Sigma and eventual expulsion from college remain unspecified in his authorized biography, this period marked the culmination of Redford's tumultuous early years. Robert Redford's college journey came to an abrupt end following his mother's death at the age of 18. Struggling with grief, he turned to drinking, a habit that eventually led to the loss of his baseball scholarship. With the scholarship gone, Redford could no longer afford to continue his education, forcing him to leave the University of Colorado after just 18 months. This marked a turning point in his life, redirecting him onto an entirely different path despite his departure from formal education. At that time, Redford pursued learning in other ways. He explored painting in LA and Paris and later enrolled at New York's American Academy of Dramatic Arts, continuing his quest for knowledge. Interestingly, the University of Colorado's decision to revoke his scholarship did not create a lasting rift. The institution later welcomed two of Redford's children, Sean and Jamie, as students. Moving on, Robert Redford, known for being intensely private, has endured numerous hardships over the years. Now nearing 90, his life and appearance have been subjects of public curiosity. While most photos of him show graceful aging, some images spark speculation. One such photo portrays him looking significantly older, prompting questions about its origin and timing. Rumors even suggest it might predate possible plastic surgery. The mystery surrounding this image has fueled discussions, with viewers encouraged to share insights in the comments, adding intrigue to the narrative of Redford's life. Redford's personal life has also been marked by profound loss and challenges. He married Lola Van Wen in 1958, years before his rise to Hollywood fame. However, his path to acting was unconventional. After losing his baseball scholarship due to misconduct, stealing beer, and breaking into homes, he joined the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, where he discovered his passion for acting. In 1957, he met and fell in love with Lola, a Mormon historian from Los Angeles. The couple eloped to Las Vegas the following year, welcoming their first child, Scott, shortly afterward. They settled in Manhattan, where Redford pursued studies at the Pratt Institute and prepared for his Broadway debut. By 1959, Redford and Lola had started building their family, which would eventually include 3 surviving children. However, their early years were shadowed by tragedy when their firstborn, Scott, passed away from sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, at just 10 weeks old. The loss was a devastating blow for the young couple, who were already grappling with financial difficulties and the pressures of Redford's budding theatre career. In later reflections, Redford described this period as particularly challenging, given their lack of resources and understanding about SIDS. The tragedy left a lasting emotional scar on both of them, though Redford rarely spoke about it publicly. Instead, he quietly supported research into the causes of SIDS, contributing to a broader understanding of this heartbreaking condition. Despite a somewhat shaky foundation, Robert Redford's marriage to Lola Van Wagen endured, fueled in part by a desire to prove his family wrong about his potential downward spiral. Marrying with only $300 between them, they faced skepticism, but the marriage persisted for nearly 3 decades, producing 3 children. The couple parted ways in 1985, and it took 16 years for Redford to openly reflect on their split. In 2001, he publicly shared that the divorce was amicable, a mutual decision that felt right. Despite their separation, Redford emphasized the enduring love, affection, and friendship they shared, a sentiment he found wonderful. He credited themselves for raising great kids who weathered the divorce well. Redford aimed to defy the stereotypical narrative of failed show business marriages but ultimately couldn't. Reflecting on his life post-divorce, he acknowledged a period of feeling lost following unsuccessful relationships with Sonia Braga and Kathy. He found companionship with artist Sybil Saga in 1996, a connection that endured for over a decade. Redford waited until 2009 to tie the knot with Saga, nearly 25 years after his divorce. Notably, the couple had been living together since the mid-1990s at Redford's Sundance home. 3 years after the heartbreaking loss of their first son, Scott, Robert Redford and Lola Van Wagen faced another ordeal with the premature birth of their second son, Jamie. 7 weeks ahead of schedule, born with a respiratory problem, Jamie's life hung in the balance, mirroring the traumatic experience they had gone through before. To make matters worse, Lola's life was also in danger. In 1962, Jamie entered the world prematurely and was diagnosed with hyaline membrane disease, the same condition that had afflicted John F. Kennedy's second son, Patrick. Given a slim 40% chance of survival, both Jamie and his mother defied the odds, bringing immense relief to the Redford family. However, Jamie's challenges did not end there. In his teenage years, he developed ulcerative colitis, a chronic digestive condition leading to colon inflammation, infections, and blood flow problems. Complications from colitis led to cirrhosis, and at the age of 31, Jamie, Robert Redford's son, Jamie, underwent a liver transplant. Not only did he face the removal of his colon, but he also required a second transplant after the first one failed to resolve his health issues. The search for a compatible organ during this desperate time was described by Robert Redford as the worst 12 weeks of their lives. While filming Quiz Show in New York, Redford flew to Omaha every weekend to be by Jamie's side during his hospitalization. Surviving this arduous journey, Jamie slowly recovered after the second transplant, facing serious complications. Yet, he not only survived but thrived, continuing a successful career as a filmmaker and producer for 3 more decades. Despite his perseverance, Jamie ultimately succumbed to liver cancer. Robert Redford hinted at the challenges his children faced in a 1998 interview with People magazine, debunking the notion that his life was easy. The actor expressed the difficulty of dealing with his children's issues, emphasizing the undisclosed struggles his family endured. For him, the worst thing in the world was seeing his children suffer. Despite Redford's rising fame, the hardships persisted. Tragedy struck in October 2020 when Robert Redford and his ex-wife, Lola Van Wagen, faced the unthinkable, the loss of their son, Jamie, at the age of 58 due to liver cancer. Jamie, who had grappled with liver problems for much of his life, underwent a transplant in 1993 and later founded an institute to raise awareness about the procedure. In 2019, while awaiting another transplant, Jamie Redford received the devastating diagnosis of bile duct cancer. A year later, his wife, Kyle, confirmed his passing on Twitter, expressing heartbreak. Robert Redford, mourning with his family, sought privacy during this challenging time. Publicist Cindy Burr, in a statement to People, conveyed the immeasurable grief experienced by Robert Redford, describing Jamie as a loving son, husband, and father. Despite the sorrow, Jamie's legacy endures through his children, his artistic contributions to filmmaking, and his dedicated commitment to conservation and the environment. The statement emphasized the profound impact Jamie Redford had on those who loved him and the lasting imprint of his life's work. However, this wasn't the only tragedy to befall the Redford family. In 1961, Robert Redford's eldest daughter, Shauna, faced heartbreak when her fiancé was murdered. Shauna, who eventually found her passion in art, was interwoven with the ill-fated tale of her college sweetheart, Sid Wells. While attending the University of Colorado, Wells, a journalism student, rented a room in his apartment to T.H. Smir. In January 1983, just 8 months later, Sid was discovered lifeless, a victim of a gunshot wound to the head. Police quickly identified Smir as their prime suspect, particularly since he was due to pay rent on the day of the grim discovery. Although Smir was arrested, a lack of compelling evidence led to his release. He relocated to California, abandoning his car in Beverly Hills, eerily devoid of fingerprints. In 2010, renewed forensic evidence implicated Smir, prompting a search for his arrest. Despite efforts to locate him, including mug shots, Smir remains at large. Tragedy struck again just 8 months after Wells's death when Shauna faced peril of her own. While driving her Ford Bronco near Salt Lake City, she lost control, plunging into the icy Jordan River. A local hero, Doreen Stalker Rivers, witnessed the accident and dove into the river, bravely rescuing Shauna as she lost consciousness. In gratitude, Robert Redford invited Rivers to the premiere of The Natural in 1984, a film whose production was momentarily halted to allow Redford to attend Wells's funeral, an event he initially hesitated to attend due to concerns about press intrusion. Reflecting on these events in 1997, Redford admitted to being haunted by the memory, likening it to a partially open door revealing a very dark room. Robert Redford's ascent to stardom began in 1967 with Barefoot in the Park, co-starring Jane Fonda, who expressed deep admiration for him. Despite her infatuation, their relationship remained platonic. Fonda recalled Redford as a fantastic kisser but noted his aversion to love scenes. A pivotal moment in Redford's career came with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, co-starring Paul Newman. Initially, the studio considered heavyweight names like Marlon Brando and Warren Beatty. However, after meeting Redford, Newman insisted on casting the lesser-known actor, creating a remarkable partnership. Their on-screen chemistry propelled the film to an £80 million box office triumph, marking the start of an incredible friendship that lasted until Newman's passing. Passing in 2008. Beyond their cinematic collaboration, Newman supported Redford during the end of his 28-year marriage to Lola. Their friendship was cemented by shared laughter, including pranks like Redford gifting Newman a dented, engineless Porsche wrapped in a bow for his 50th birthday. Newman responded by having the car crushed and returned to Redford, who then turned it into a garden sculpture and delivered it back to Newman. These antics, left unacknowledged, reflected the depth of their bond. While Redford gained fame as an Adonis for his role as Sundance, the constant focus on his looks became a burden. He was denied a part in The Graduate because he had never experienced rejection by a woman, reinforcing his frustration. He longed for recognition based on his acting ability rather than his appearance. For him, acting was about the craft, not superficial attributes. Yet, he was often reduced to discussions about his blonde hair. Redford's later years were marked by a £150 million fortune amassed from blockbuster hits like The Way We Were, Indecent Proposal, and All the President's Men. Now a grandfather of 7, he resides with his second wife, Sybil Sagers, on their scenic 6,000-acre ranch in Utah. Despite Hollywood glitz, Redford prefers low-key celebrations, finding solace in the tranquil beauty of his surroundings. As he reflects on aging, he appreciates the diminishing emphasis on his looks, allowing him to be recognized for his craft rather than superficial attributes. Family gatherings at the ranch are intimate and devoid of glamour, aligning with Redford's preference for simplicity and quiet reflection. Thank you for watching. We truly appreciate your time and support. Stay tuned for more, and we'll see you in the next one.